Every country tells stories about itself. Some are inspiring, some are incomplete, and some are deliberately left out. On this show, we pull back the curtain, question the narratives, and explore the people, policies, and history shaping the America that we live in today. No spin, no filters, just honest conversation. I'm your host, Breezy, with my co-host, Des the Diva, and this is America, No Filter. What's going on, everybody? It's your girl, Breezy, with my co-host,
Des the Diva.
And this is another episode of America No Filter, where we challenge narratives, question assumptions, and we follow the receipts. Not because we're trying to tell you what to think, but we do believe that you deserve enough truth to think for yourself. So, what are we talking about today, Des?
We're going to kick off with some conversation surrounding Nolan Wells. Very popular story in the media right now, and we're going to go down and speak about some history from there. So
okay, yeah, and just for those of you that might be a little sensitive, I mean, the topics are we're going to be talking about death, we're going to be talking about racialized violence, we're going to be talking about the history of lynching, we're going to talk about suicide. I mean, these are some of the topics that we might touch on in this episode. So if those are sensitive topics for you, you have been warned. But before we really dive into this, we are not going to speculate on what happened. I mean, we have our own opinions on what happened, but we want to talk to you about what we do know and then what we don't know, because there's a lot that we still don't know about this, as it is an ongoing investigation. So we just wanted to clarify that, and then we really gonna get into it. So I think what's really interesting is that, I mean, when this story broke, I think a lot of Black Americans specifically had a very visceral feeling about this. Do you want to talk about how you felt when you heard about the story?
anytime I hear stories that are similar to this, I almost get a rush of fear for the young ones in my family, because it comes off like, not again, not again, another story like this. Obviously, of course, we don't know all the details just yet. We're still uncovering things daily, but obviously, as a Black person, I automatically thought another Black kid with another group of white children didn't make it home to their parents. And it's heartbreaking. When one Black mom cries, we all cry. And
That's
it's
for sure.
heartbreaking to see that, continuing in our community. But then at the same time, you almost are like, this is on brand. We've seen this time and time again.
Absolutely. And I had a very similar reaction. I mean, we just came off of the headlines of Cyrus McCormack Belton and what happened to him, even though it was a year ago. The person who killed him, walked free, right? So that just kind of left the news cycle, and then we found ourselves in yet another news cycle where we see a young Black person in the company of white people, and he doesn't come home, and these are people that are supposed to be his friends. So definitely a very visceral reaction for me and a lot of us, with that same thought, like, here we go again, another one of these stories. It wasn't just that, oh dang, that's too bad, it wasn't like that. It was like, okay, there's probably a whole lot more to the story than we are being told. And I think that that's one of the natural inclinations for us, is to, when something like this happens, we have a feeling that there's always something to see. I think a lot of times the news and police departments will do there's nothing to see here. Like, this is
Yes.
just horrible accident, nothing else. I don't know. We don't know what happened, but it was an accident and nobody is at fault, right? And it's just one of those things. And they want to
Right.
dismiss it that way, when we're like, that's real curious though, because I think what makes this shine more as something that needs to be investigated is the immediate reaction of his white friends after this
And their
incident,
parents.
and their parents.
And their parents, and we're still on the heels of the Carmelo Anthony case. So here we have one young man who tried to save his own life and now is going to jail for years. And then we have another young man who, again, we don't know all the details, but we've seen this before.
Right.
Carmelo tried to save his life, and so then it's like, what do you tell your kids?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes it's hard to reserve judgment, right? It's hard not to react in a way that is emotional, because we know that there's a historical context to these kinds of situations, right? And It's not to say that that is what happened here. We don't know exactly what happened here, but we know when something feels off. We know when something don't smell right or something doesn't look right. What we do know about what happened to Nolan Wells is that he went out to Corn Island, Mississippi, with a bunch of his white friends. From the pictures and video that we saw from that day, it seems that he is the only Black person at this event. Don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I saw. We hear about some sort of altercation. There's a video that kind of, there's some screaming, some yelling, everybody kind of looking in one direction. Don't really know what's going on there. And then we hear a lot of conflicting stories. We
Mhm,
heard from his friends that he decided to stay back on the island because he wanted to talk to some girl. So they left him there and they didn't see him after that. Well, then the story changes to, well, no, there was a pool party really, really late that night or early into the hours of the morning where we see Nolan in the water, in the pool with his friends, right? We also know that Nolan was somebody who was very big on social media, especially Snapchat, when his phone was recovered that his friends had. By the way, all of his Snapchats and everything from that day were deleted. They were gone. And then the friends lied about even having the phone. The mom had to
mhm,
track it via GPS, and then somebody else was like, "Oh yeah, he does have the phone and his keys too." So, I mean, there's a lot of inconsistencies in the wake of this incident. We do know that at least the four boys that he went with, they have come off of social media. They deleted all of their, this and that around that same evening. One of them is a son of a judge. I think the
mhm,
stepmom is a judge. One is a son of a doctor, but they have some parents with some influence in that area, and allegedly those parents got together and those kids got together in the days following this incident and kind of rallied around each other and decided that they were not going to talk about this incident. They were not helpful to the police initially. And then there was some interesting, I guess, information around the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard being called and, when they were called versus when they showed up, and there's some discrepancies around that. So that's what I know. Is there anything else that I left out that you
the
that
boat
you're
was scrubbed. The boat was held at the judge's house and was scrubbed. She did make a statement, and then she went off social media, and her statement basically just said, "My kids didn't do nothing." But for me, if this is your friend, and as you're stating, your child loved this kid, this young man, why are you not cooperating with the police? Why
Mhm.
is there no cooperation? If they're innocent, they're innocent. Then why are you not cooperating? There also were some pictures that surfaced this morning from one of the other kids on the island, not one of the 4 boys on the boat, but one of the other kids on the island's phone, where it appears that there is one of the boys from the boat beating up Nolan, and you can see him standing over him, and it look what appears to be Nolan on the ground, and that surfaced this morning. So and the evidence keeps changing because the young lady that they said Nolan stayed behind to talk to, she stated herself that that didn't happen. He was not with her. So she didn't even, cooperate with the story. So that's why the story keeps changing. The other children are starting to tell what they saw. I'm guessing fear is setting in and they're starting to speak up more. And so the story is now starting to change. We're going to see more of this story than what they're not going to be able to cover it up. That's my opinion. I think as a parent, I don't think as a parent I could stand by and cover up my child doing something like that, but I could also imagine as a parent that the parents of those boys are probably scared as hell too.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking they're just acting out of hatred, racism, and fear all together. So they
Yeah.
had a lot of quick reactions and they didn't think this through. And now they got Ben Crump on the job. So and Nancy, Grace. But when I seen that Bob hit the screen, I said, baby, they going to jail. Nancy is not playing with nobody. She got a fresh
Nancy
touch up
is
on that blonde. Baby, that Bob was
Nancy is
bobbing.
a proverbial pit bull in a skirt.
You going to jail with
When
Nancy Popeye.
she when she sinks her teeth into something, she is not gonna let go. She is not gonna let go. So
Nancy,
when I did see that Nancy entered the chat, I was like, "Okay, all right."
I love
And
Nancy.
I am happy that the family retained Ben Crump. I think that is the right
Love
move.
him.
I wish that Carmelo's family had done that upfront
Me
as
too.
well, but hindsight is 2020. I think that, the fact that something like this is so polarizing. I mean, it says a lot about America. It also says a lot about history. It says a lot about life experience and lived experience. Because some people have the luxury of saying, well, we just got to trust that the cops will do their job. And then there are others of us that know that the cops and the KKK have often worn the same uniform.
They cousins.
They're the same person. So it's like we don't really trust that the cops are just going to do the right thing, especially in an area like Mississippi.
Mississippi. I don't even know why black people still live there, baby. I know there's history there and
Well,
your family own a house, but pack your shit up.
well, Mississippi and Alabama are among the poorest states in the country. So I don't even think that necessarily all the time people have the resources to move, right? That's one of the reasons, but there are many reasons why people don't move. There is still a high concentration of black people in these states where their ancestors were formerly enslaved. They didn't go anywhere. Some people did, but not everybody. Maybe they didn't have the means to move. But in a place like the deep South, it's hard to just take somebody's word uh, for it when they say that the cops are going to do their job. Yeah, that's
Before you, and I don't take the word that the cops are gonna do their jobs here. So hell no, you can't take their word in the deep south.
yeah.
I'm almost wanna investigate the police while they're investigating. That's how serious it is.
That's another episode that we can we can get into the history of policing in America and the origins with which the modern day police force was founded here in the United States. They were deputized to catch enslaved people, and not just enslaved people, just black people in general. Hell, if you were a freed black person and did not have the appropriate paperwork, they would take you. They'd take you too. And even if you did have the appropriate paperwork, sometimes they didn't care and they would enslave you. I mean, there's a story that is based on something true. 12 Years a Slave is based off of just that. A freed black man that was stolen, kidnapped, and made to, be enslaved for 12 years before regaining his freedom. So, so there is an inherent distrust for policing and rightfully so. And I think that the other thing about this case is the parents have a lot of questions. And I would have a lot of these same questions if my child did not come home. If his friends can't give me a straight story about what happened. Everybody's saying something different. They're lying to me about when they last saw him. And why would he stay behind on an island to talk to some girl, but his phone is at your house and his
And his
keys are
keys.
at your house? He would not have stayed back on an island without his phone and his keys.
Being a judge and knowing how evidence works, to have that boat scrubbed before it come on, lady.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
even covering your tracks.
Well, I mean, and again, I think that a lot of us feel this way because of the inconsistencies, of the rallying together to decide that you're not going to speak, advocate for your friend, help your friend. I mean, if he was really your friend, this is how you treat somebody that you supposedly love and care about. You're going to hide things from their parents. You're not going to be honest because the reality is if something had happened to him out there and they were a real friend and they were a witness to this, they would be the ones calling his mama, "Hey, something going on out here. You need to get out here or we can't find Nolan." They would have alerted the family and they didn't. The family had to be like, "Where my kid at? Your kids is home. Where my kid at?" So the parents had to go seeking out their son instead of having the friends say, "Hey, something happened. We don't know where Nolan is. We can't find him. We need you to help us find him." The kids
Exactly.
didn't set the alarm. They didn't sound the alarm. They just let it ride. And I know that there's also been some debate in our community about the parents' responsibility in this and allowing Nolan to
Mhm.
go with his friends. And I definitely want to sit and talk about that for a minute because I have some very particular thoughts about that, but I'd like to hear what you think about it, and then I'll talk.
In all honesty, I have mixed feelings about it because I don't want to limit the spaces my children can be in, but I know the danger they're in a lot of these spaces. So I have mixed feelings. So part of me is like, let them go and teach them how to protect themselves. And then another part of me is like, no matter what you teach them, if you send your black child with a bunch of non-black people, they'll always be the butt of the joke. They'll always be the first one in danger. If it's them against you, if it's their life or your life, they're gonna take yours. And I wouldn't want to. I just couldn't put my baby in that danger. It's sad and it sucks, but at the same time, I don't really desire for my children to go to all white schools. And I mean, sorry if that's offensive, but I don't. I don't desire them. I want them to be amongst other cultures so that they can be well versed, but I don't want them feeling like they have to have this proximity to whiteness to be great. So I don't want them in all white schools or all white. I don't even want to live in an all white community. I live in the as white as it's going to get as far as where I live right now because Even here in the community that I live in, I've faced racism several times. So I can only imagine what's going on in these communities where they're all white people, you one of the only black groups, and now you changing yourself to keep up with these other kids. I don't think I'm not for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, what
So,
do you think?
so I think I also have mixed feelings about this. I think that we do have to protect our children. We do have to educate our children in a different way, inform our children in a different way. Like before you go outside, these are some of the things that you're going to have to do differently, right? If you are with your white friends and a cop is around, they might be able to cuss that cop out or disrespect that person. You cannot do that, right? You have to keep your hands where they can see them. You have to move slowly. You have to be unafraid when anybody else would be afraid. In the face of somebody bigger than you, potentially stronger than you, and armed, you have to be the one that shows no fear because they can use the excuse that they were afraid of you to kill you, even
Absolutely.
though their job is to not be afraid because they're supposed to be trained for these situations, right? And so we have to equip them with the things that we need to in order for them to survive in situations like this. But at the same time, I don't think it is our responsibility for what happened to Nolan. Like it's not his parents' fault. The outcome is not on his parents because this is the reality too, is that that wasn't the first time that Nolan's gone out with his all-white friend group. And every other time he came home. So with his parents, they were thinking probably, why would this time be any different? Right? Like if they didn't have anything, any signs to lead them to believe that this trip would be different than the other trips. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you put the blame on them in that the outcome was the outcome this time? If I don't know how many times, this is a hypothetical. If Nolan had gone out with those same white guys on a boat 10 other times, what was to make his parents know that the 11th time was going to be the time?
Who's gonna be the
You
one?
know what I'm saying? Like, how would you know that? If you've gone and come back, he's gone and come back, he's gone and come back before, right? So there's that. But then also, why is it that we are holding the black parents more accountable than those white kids?
Say white parents.
Their parents, right? Because Nolan's parents didn't kill him, that we know. But we as a community, we own a lot of that we own responsibility for white behavior. We oftentimes take responsibility for how white people behave because oftentimes there's no accountability and they don't take responsibility for their own behavior because even in this situation Nolan was a child, but I can definitely tell you that the boys that he was with are still seen as boys. If this
Mhm.
situation were reversed, Nolan would be a man, and whoever was the victim would be a child if they were white. We would keep them in that child category, the adultification of black children, right? Same thing with Carmelo Anthony and his sentencing, because they sentenced him like an adult, even though he wasn't an adult
100%.
when the act happened,
Sure
right?
did.
And there were similar cases in the state of Texas at the time, non-black boys, and their sentences were significantly less for the exact same thing,
Mhm.
right? So they were still seen as children and protected as such. And Carmelo was treated as an adult. So I think that it's very complex and it's complicated. It's layered like American history, right? Because it's never as black and white as we'd like it to be. It's very complicated. And so I think that yes, his parents have a responsibility to educate him and to teach him. But at the same time, we have to trust our kids and let them go out into this world that is not always going to embrace them lovingly, right? But they have to eventually go out into this world. So I have mixed feelings about all of this. I don't feel like his parents should own all of the responsibility in this, especially if he's gone out with those people before. And it said that he had. So it was really hard for them to know that this time would be different. And I think that that is kind of where I sit with it. It
You
shouldn't
bring up
happen.
you bring up an
Go ahead.
interesting topic because you're right. They're not holding the parents of the white kids accountable the way they're holding that black mom accountable. And that did not click in my head until you said it right now. Because even me to a degree was like, why she let her damn son go with the damn people? Why? That was one of my initial thoughts. Was, why would she let her son go with them people? And you are correct. We hold the responsibility more often than not for their behavior towards us. Like we're at fault. We put some
Hmm.
type of fault on being black in those spaces where the fault should really be on how you treat black people in those spaces.
Look,
You're absolutely correct.
'Cause look, let's look at Emmett Till. He was supposed to be responsible for what happened to him because what? Because he allegedly whistled at a white woman. Allegedly, right? And that was even debated. So it was like, so it's the fault of what, his mother, his grandfather for letting him out into the world where somebody would harm him because of something that they thought that he did, or something that a white woman said that he did that later was proven not to be what happened. It didn't
And
happen
she
that way.
admitted to
She
lying and
admitted it.
still
It's
didn't have to face any con That's what pisses me off because they said because of her age that they did not arrest her. But and I'm not excusing anything that anybody did. And I will say this very clearly. If Bill Cosby did what he did, then he did it, take his ass to jail, whatever. But she should have went her ass to jail too, because they didn't have no problem snatching up old ass Bill to take him to jail for all of them crimes that allegedly he did. But her, well, she's old. She took somebody's life, and that was
he was 14.
it
He
was
was a baby.
brutal what they
Very
did to that boy. And I don't give a damn if it was her last 10 days on earth. She should have sit her ass in jail for all 10 of them days.
and I agree. And I think that again, we take on the responsibility oftentimes for white behavior that we could have done something to prevent them from being how they were in that situation or scenario. And I'm just like, we shouldn't own that.
No,
That's not our fault. We should be able to send our kids out and them come home. I mean, barring some kind of accident, right? You can't prevent a car accident or something like those things you can't prevent, but we should not be responsible because some non-black person harmed our child while they were out in the world. Cause like we can't just keep our kids home, right? Like that you can't that you can't ever go out anywhere. And so I think that
right.
that's one of the things that really weigh on me. It really weighs on me a lot about this particular case because I don't see the parents of the white children taking any responsibility or any accountability for their children's behavior, whatever it was in this case. But we see, especially even in our community, we are the ones that are like, well, why the mama and why the daddy let him do?
It's us. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
we are blaming us. And again, I do understand that we have to equip our children for the world that we live in. And I agree with you. Like I would be hesitant to allow my kids to be the only kids, in an all white space like that. I mean that I've been the only black kid. I know how that feels. I grew up very much in very various situations. With my dad being a military officer, like I was the only black kid a lot. And it's not always very comfortable at all. People do look at you differently. You do experience the racism and you do feel othered and kind of left out. I mean, you literally stick out like a sore thumb, right? You are the only, drop of melanin in a sea full of whiteness. Those spaces don't always feel safe because yeah, who are you going to turn to if shit hit the fan? Who really got your back? So I get that. I get that as well. But I think that, the responsibility for what happened is not on the parents
Mm.
ultimately, and it's not on Nolan. It's on the people that may have done something to him. Again, we don't know what happened, but the actions around those who supposedly cared about him are very suspicious.
Yeah, because even when you think about it, when Nolan's mother was out there looking for her son, the other mothers didn't even rally to go outside with her and look for her son. What do you mean? If I have two stepdaughters, if one of their friends' moms come to the door and tells me they cannot find the little girl, I'm outside with that mom looking for that
Absolutely.
baby.
Absolutely.
Like, we're gonna be outside together. Do you want me to call the police? Have you already made a call? I'll call them. Get out here. I'm asking my girls, hey, when did you see her last? What were y'all doing? Did anybody talk? Something. I'm gonna get involved. I'm gonna make sure that this mom isn't standing alone looking for her baby.
Yeah,
Like,
now that just made me think of a situation about maybe a year and a half ago. We were at the park. I was at the park with my twins, and I had spoken to both of them. Now, the park, my car was probably about 20 feet away from where they were. I mean, very close. And I had spoken to them both. Hey, I'm going to go get you something to drink in the car because they were asking for something to drink, and I'll be right back. And so I walked to the car and I came back. One of my sons, my youngest, was still there, but my oldest was gone. And I was like, and I saw one car had left in the time that I had gone to my car and come back. And I couldn't find him. And of course, I say something to the other parents and I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to yell, I'm screaming his name. And everybody jumped in and started helping me look for him. Everyone. Now, this is a park with mostly black people. But all of the parents, they're walking around, what is he wearing? What is it? They're screaming his name. That I had called the cops. I'm on the phone with 911, and eventually I hear somebody saying, I think I found him over here. He's over here. Right. But my heart left my body at the thought that I could not find my child. Right. But all of the parents helped immediately. Even
Yeah,
some of the kids running around, looking for where he might be. He wandered off down a path and couldn't find me or didn't see me, didn't see his brother, and he started crying. Right. I mean, that was a lot. But everybody rallied around and everybody helped in that moment of need. And so the fact that that did not happen in this situation with Nolan was very odd.
yeah, they're saying that the statements from the other boys are that they grew up with him, they love him. Nolan mama is like, "I really didn't even know them kids like that."
I did
So
hear
it's
that.
like,
I don't know how true that is, but I heard that as well. I'm
like,
not
what
I'm
do you
not saying it's not true. I just heard it on social media.
yeah.
So yeah.
It's like, come on, but like I said, I'm not a biological parent, but if somebody comes to this door and their child is missing, I'm outside. I'm
Mhm.
looking for their child. I'm comforting the mom. Don't worry, we're gonna find her. We got this. It's good, something, something. You did nothing but make a statement. Hey, your kids do suspicious shit. Start taking their damn social media down. Scrub down the boat and be quiet. How more guilty do you want them to look? You don't even y'all can't even do the damn crime right because I'm the type of person to steal your wallet and help you look for it.
Well, but I mean, when we have all of these narratives around, well, you should have just complied. Well,
Yeah, baby.
why in this situation are you not complying with the police officers and the law in this situation? Why are you not
Hello.
just complying? This is your friend. You should just comply. Why are you
Right.
lawyering up? Why are you scrubbing social media?
And
Why are
both.
you scrubbing boats?
Cause me personally, if I know I didn't do nothing, Imma just tell you what I saw.
Absolutely.
This is what I saw Nolan, this is what he had on last you know, I help you get out here and look for him, but this is he was over here with this girl or whatever the story actually is. If I know I didn't do it, Imma just comply with you.
Yeah. And I would help look for my friend.
I'm gonna help look for my friend. There is just no way, especially friends that I love. Like I've had the same best friend since 5th grade. You tell me she missing, I'm about to be damn near passed out with the damn mama. Like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. It completely does not make sense. I'm praying that they find, as much evidence as they need to get down to the bottom of it, or one of them little boys snap and can't hold it no more, and they say something. Hopefully, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm doubtful, but I'm praying. I think being Crump is on the job. They need to investigate the examiner too, because
Examiner. Yeah. So we've
they
had
need to.
I saw something yesterday that was stating that this particular medical examiner, and we will air her out on here. So we'll put her
Mhm.
name up here somewhere, maybe a
Yeah,
photo.
yeah,
But there were three suspicious Black deaths recently that she
yeah.
all was like, nothing to see here. And of course, Colin Kaepernick, actually, shout out to him. He is always fighting the good
Not
fight.
out.
He paid for the autopsy, the second autopsy for Nolan Wells. And that we got those results. But was it yesterday? So the day
Uh,
before?
the day before yesterday.
Yeah, where Ben Crump had kind of announced what they found and what they didn't find, and they were stating something about his neck, interior parts of his neck that were not with his body that they thought was a little suspicious. Because why? Where is it? Where is it? Is it at the original medical examiner's? It's still, and why do you have it? Why wasn't that part of taken with the rest of his remains. And then just the other questions that they weren't necessarily even able to fully answer because they didn't get to see the condition of the body as it was when it was found. They're getting to see the condition of the body as it was after somebody else had already examined it, right? They did say that there was some damage to his neck area and that there was something that looked like maybe some kind of laceration or injury to the back of his head that was 8 to 12 inches long. And I'm like, good
Yeah,
Lord,
there was some deep,
bruising or
almost
something.
bruising on the back of his head. If they had gotten that throat piece, which was the piece that was right here, if you feel your throat right there, you can feel there's a cartilage connection. If they had gotten that piece, they would have been able to see if there was any strangulation either this way or
Mhm.
like this way, or any type of like stepping on his neck or anything like that that aligned with that bruising in the back of the head.
Yeah,
And that's what they were that's where the problem is at. That's why we need this piece.
yeah. But I think that, I mean, I'm not clarification. I do not work at a mortuary. I am not a coroner, but strangulation as far as rope would leave imprints, right? It would leave rope marks around his neck. So they didn't say rope, right? They didn't say that, but they did say injuries to his neck, right? So we don't know what that means, whether that was hands potentially or something like a rope, right? But I think that if there is something injuries around the back of the head as well, either he hit his head, maybe falling backwards. And I don't know what kind of bruising that a rope would leave around the back of your head, but I imagine it'd be very similar to what it leaves in the front. So that is they did not clarify what's happening here, but there was something that they need more information to tell what's going on around his neck area. So I think that is,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
injury in the back
it,
of his neck is aligning with possibly have fallen backwards
mhm,
to me, based off of what I'm hearing,
right.
not a rope injury at all. I'm thinking he may have possibly fallen backwards, and then this piece of your neck is so damn sensitive. If you sock a person hard enough, that cartilage can rip. It is very possible. So you
Yeah,
never know.
I can't speak to that because that's not my background. But, it doesn't appear as though it's just nothing to see here. Like there's still more questions. And
Mhm.
until those questions are fully answered, like, I mean, this is still going to be mainline news, I think, because, those are some questions that definitely need to be answered. And I think that, when you talk about and when we think about, this is just one of many, many situations over the last couple of years where we have seen young people, black people killed mysteriously. There are a lot of mysterious hangings of black people from trees. And if you do not know the history of that in America, lynching is not something that black people typically do to themselves. That was a fear tactic, a tactic to scare black people by white supremacists. KKK specifically, but you can extend that to any other group. But KKK, they would burn crosses in black people's yards. They would burn their houses down, and they would hang black people for sport. I mean, it was at one point in this nation, it was something that parents would take their children to.
Mhm.
We're going to go see a lynching, right? It was entertainment. So when we have so many cases that we're seeing of young black people, and not always young, because some older black men also have been victims in recent years, and then every single outcome is suicide. What? How?
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you hang yourself, with a rope 30 feet into the air and then get yourself up there and then there's nothing, there's no ladder left behind, there's no anything. How you do that? How do you do that? I mean, there was a young girl found hung in a tree in front of a church. There was the young man on the college campus with allegedly broken limbs. How you hang yourself with broken arms? It's
And a
just there's
head injury. Kyle Basinga had a head injury and broken legs.
right. I mean, there was a recent case. I know you showed me with that guy that goes deuces. I don't know what his name is. So sorry. That guy where his family friend almost looked like he was decapitated. That he's still in the hospital right now, and he went to some
Yes.
kind of
Like a
concert or
festival.
festival. And I mean, there are staples clear across his chest and neck.
The neck.
And from that, I do know because I saw that text message specifically. His friends had texted to check on him and asked him if he was okay and that if he was safe. And he did a thumbs down, no, before whatever happened to him. And of course, nothing to see here either. And I can guarantee they were trying to say he tried to kill himself. Who tries to rip their own head off as a
You
method of
you
unaliving themselves?
you can't. You're not going to be able to. And then a lot of these cases, so Kyle Basinga, his family says that he was mentally sound, and they, a lot of these people had conversations with these people right before they were found hung. Juliana, the lady the little girl that was hanging in front of the church, she was only 16, happy, healthy, mentally sound. There's no evidence of any reason for them. There's usually not a suicide note.
Right.
In fact, I've not heard of a case where there has been a suicide note left behind. And like you said, to your point, how are they getting in the tree that high up? There's no ladder. There's no evidence of them climbing on a nothing, a roof of a car, nothing. There's nothing there to get them in that tree. There, a lot of them have been injured already when they're found. How?
Yeah.
And we just don't historically hang ourselves. I'm not saying black people don't commit suicide because obviously we do.
Sure, but there are a lot easier ways to do it than to do it that way, and historically, that's not gonna be our way. And it doesn't mean that black people haven't hung themselves inside of a house or a garage or a prison or wherever else, a jail cell. You know, those things they have happened factually, but we don't go out into the woods, into the deep dark woods and
Let me
hang
tell you something.
ourselves free. It's
Let me
it's
tell you
not a
something,
thing.
because we're unfiltered here. So let me tell you something. I have tried to commit suicide twice. When you're in that mental state, you are not thinking, let me put myself on display for everybody to see me harming myself. There's shame, there is embarrassment, there is deep rooted pain. Nobody is trying to kill themselves and put themselves on display while doing it. These people are murdered. And because we know the history of this country, they want to call it a suicide.
Yeah.
And
But
we don't get mad enough for me. We're not angry enough. There's not enough pushback. There's no
yeah,
way you'd be able to tell me my loved one hung themselves in a tree and I just take that as an answer.
yeah, because it's
Because we
not.
know they did it.
We know they didn't. It is lazy police work at best, but, racism and white supremacy is the underlying cause
I mean, fucking eyelashes.
because because the normalization of Black death, they don't think it's a big deal. And if we say it's a suicide, then we don't have to look for anybody. But the other thing is if we say it's a suicide, then we don't have to look at ourselves. We don't have to look at our friends, our community, the people who are very well involved in this. They don't have to be held accountable. They can get to kill a Black person and still live a full life.
And they
And
don't look at us
that
as human. They're not looking at it as they killed a black person. They're looking at it like another animal off the fucking streets.
yeah.
They don't look at us
There's
as
a lot of
human.
that, and it's been emboldened by this fascist regime that we have, taking over the United States of America, or who have successfully taken over the United States of America, because if you still think this is democracy, this is not. There are still, echoes of democracy, but none of these rules are being followed, and so living in a place like that, accountability isn't high on their list of anything, especially holding white people and or government officials, people that work for the state or local governments or federal government. We're not holding any of those people accountable, because even with they apparently can kill indiscriminately, and that's just okay, which is insane. All of this is crazy, and I do think that we are not mad enough. There are countries that have turned up for much less.
Like things
Look
that we
at
wouldn't get an eye at. But now we
Like
got a president.
Algeria, and how was it Algeria who turned the
Yes,
fuck up because their president allowed Jared Kushner and Ivanka to buy some protected land? They fucking burnt his house down
baby, they had rocket launchers and
right in the streets. What are you doing? And I'm
yes.
like, and we're just sitting here going to work.
But you know why? Because they want us to do it.
I
They
know.
want us to turn up. They want to say the black people did it, and then maybe they'll follow suit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think historically, because Black people have always led the movements for change in this country, they're waiting for us to get in front, but I mean, in the front is in the line of fire, and they want us to be in the front. And I'm like, do we need to be out there? Yeah,
Yeah.
we do, but you go first. You be in the front, and not because I'm afraid to be up front, but because racism is not a Black invention. All of this crap that's happening right now, we didn't invent this. Because if we did, we would uninvent it with the quickness. It would have been uninvented before I was born, if this was something that we could control. But this hatred, this racism, this white supremacy is built into foundational systems of the United States of America.
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
built in, and the only way for this to really, be undone is for them to be the ones dismantling it. You've gotta knock the buildings down. You've gotta take the bricks brick by brick. You have to unbuild this monstrous machine. I mean, we can help you, but you have to be the one. You guys have to be the ones to talk to your people, to your friends, your family, the people that you know, and get them to do the right thing. And that's easier said than done, because just as we grew up with a certain trauma passed down in our DNA, I think they've grown up with the same kind of thing but flipped, right?
You don't learn that in school.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of what
So
we learned in psychology.
as we have had certain traumas that make us see this moment of Nolan Wells and go, ooh, this don't feel right, because that's in us to feel that. because of what
Mhm,
we've seen. And this is the thing. I think some people think that we're just reacting because, just we're reacting to react.
mhm.
But the reaction is based on history. It is based on memory. It is based on lived experience. It's not just because
Yeah,
we're like, all white people are evil. Some people may think that. That's up to them to think. But I think a lot of us feel this way because we've seen things like this before. There is a history of this kind of thing where something happens to a black person in white spaces, and it's never what they tell us it is.
they know that, and that's
And
why they
when
say
you
you that's why they say, "Oh, you pulling the race card." That's because they're putting the responsibility back on us, like we said earlier. They know
listen,
that.
if you shuffle up this deck and the race card is all up and through this deck, I'm gonna play the cards that I have. It's because I didn't make the deck. You made the deck and then you gave it to me, right? And then you want to be upset if I play the cards that I'm dealt, but you made the cards. There wouldn't be a race card without racism. There
That
wouldn't
part.
be a race card without the separation of races through, eugenics and this superiority, system that was created because whiteness didn't exist before the 1600s. White people as a definition wasn't even a thing until I think 16 like 42 I want to say, and I could be wrong. But that's when the idea and concept of whiteness as a lived experience came into being. And that's when they were like, "Oh, well, white people are superior to black people because look at the cranial structure and this that right?"
What
It
were
that
they before that?
I'm sorry.
What were they before that?
They were whatever their, country was. They weren't white, they were
Okay,
Italian, they were English, they were
got it.
Scottish, they were Irish, they were German. They were wherever they came from. They didn't see themselves as a collective. They saw themselves by where they came from. That was their identity, is about where they came from, not what they looked like until slavery, chattel slavery, and all of that. And now you've got this hierarchy where white people have placed themselves above everyone else. And then you go, white. And then you go like yellow. And then you go brown. And then you go black. The darker you are, the lower you are on this caste system, essentially, that was created. But whiteness as a social construct, because that's what it is, wasn't invented until then. Because before then, white people was killing white people like it was, it was nobody's business. Before they started killing us, they were killing each other.
Mhm.
And then they were like, well, if we want to, well, if we're superior to them, they got numbers. Okay, over in Africa, there's lots of them over there, and if we have to now find a way to connect in our whiteness. That makes us the same. Now we're all on the same team, and that grew that kind of group of people because they didn't see themselves as one culture. They saw themselves very individualistic and individualistically based on where they were from. And that's how it is now for us black people, right? Especially black Americans. We see each other as one group of people.
Group of
Even
people.
though historically our ancestors are from all kinds of different places, but now we are a collective, and that's how the world sees us, essentially. Black Americans is a distinctively different group than Africans, but we do recognize that there is a diaspora of blackness that does unite us in a lot of ways. But I think that was one of the things. Whiteness wasn't a concept until they made it a concept because they didn't see each other as the same initially either. So anyway,
So when did blackness become a concept?
when whiteness became a concept.
Around the same time.
Well, no, it has to be the same time because how are you superior to some group that you don't have named? So when they gave themselves the name of whiteness, they named everybody else too. Okay, you guys are black. You guys are redskins, which is very
Got
racist.
it.
What they called
Yep.
native. Yellow, which is what they called Asians, right? Brown, which is what they called people from Latin descent and Middle Eastern descent, right? Since they chose white, they gave everybody else a color too. And now, based on this color, this is how you are valued and to be treated in society, based on this made up thing that we just made up, not knowing that the origins, or maybe knowingly, the origins of humanity comes from the continent of Africa. If you go far back enough in history, that's what it is. And to this day, we know factually that the mitochondrial DNA that holds the genetics for every ethnicity, every type of person, is only found in black women.
Mhm, mhm. And if you need more content on that, guys, look up the Eve gene. You'll be able to find more information. 'Cause don't just
Absolutely.
take our word for it. Look this up. Cause even when we speak
Check,
to the
verify,
children.
and the
Yeah,
reality is if I got it wrong, tell me in the comments.
yeah,
Tell me, because 'cause I'm
yeah,
not somebody who will, who's not willing to consider new information. I
same,
know that I don't know everything. I'm smart enough to know that I don't know everything, and I think
fact.
one of the signs of intelligence is that you can receive new information and utilize that information to then think about everything you knew before. Now I've got
Mhm,
this new piece, and now I can revise my thinking if it needs to be revised based on that new information, right? So
mm,
I don't know everything. I am not the harbinger of all knowledge. Okay, I learn a lot every day, and that's one of the things I love is to learn. And so when I learn
mhm,
things, I want to teach things. But you don't have to believe everything I say. Google is out there, but we're also building something right now that will help you check these facts for yourself.
mhm,
And it's not a I'm going to make this liberal left leaning because that's what I want these facts to say. No, I'm going to give you the facts just as they are with the context because context matters, right? But the truth is never really just black and white, right? There are always areas, the shades of gray, right? There's always that. But you need to find these things out for yourself. We will tell you, but if you want to verify, you can go out and do it yourself now, but we're working on something that we can help you verify some of this information later and we will put in the lie that you were told or the thing that you were told whether or not that's true, what's true about it, what's untrue about it, what's missing from that analysis, what was the context of the time, why was it relevant then, and why it's relevant now. Like all of that's going to come out, and we're working on something to be able to do that. So always fact check, because what we really want more than anything is to teach you how to think for yourself and ask the right questions and not to take everything at face value because history is layered, as we've been talking about.
mhm,
There's a lot to it, and it's not always going to be black and white. Sometimes, but that's actually very rare. More often than not, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle and to the pie. So,
mhm,
I
yeah,
don't know. We have said a lot. But I think that one of the things that's always missed in these things is the humanity that was lost. You know, I mean, Nolan was an 18-year-old kid. How many of us have been around 18-year-old kids? I mean, we've all, if we've been blessed to live this long, we've all been 18-year-old kids. You know, we don't
yeah,
always make the best decisions. You know, sometimes we're a little challenging for our parents, but by everything that I've read about Nolan, he was a good kid. He was a smart kid. He was well loved by his friends, his real friends, his
actual friend.
community, his family. He was more quiet, a little more soft spoken. I think they called him on his football team, they called him Mr. Cool Hands, you know? He had a personality that shined and that people really, really loved him. And he's gone. You know, he's got siblings. He's got siblings. And now there's a hole in their family where Nolan used to be, right? I don't know how old his siblings are. I would imagine they're not, that he's maybe one of the older siblings. I'll have to check. But you know, waking up and your big brother not being there anymore, ever, as a parent, having to have a funeral for your child, having your child's story be national news. You don't really get to grieve privately. You're
Especially
having to
because
grieve in public. And then
yeah,
having all these people send death threats to the mom and dad,
yes, they're
all this
judging the way she grieves.
parents, like they're already going through a hard time.
Yeah, and they're critiquing and judging everything that woman does.
Everything.
And I'm a firm believer you can't tell somebody how to grieve if that ain't something you've been through yourself. And they critique every move that woman makes. And it's horrible. I'm sure she hasn't taken a deep breath since the day she lost her damn son. He took her breath with him. And she won't be able to breathe again till she gets the answers that she deserves.
Yeah, and this is the other thing that I think about whenever I think about cases like this one and Cyrus McCormack Belton and the thousands upon thousands of cases like this, there will never truly be justice.
Mm-mm.
Not ever. Even if someone is convicted of a crime in this situation or circumstance, there will never truly be justice because justice would be that Nolan is still alive.
Absolutely.
And that will never happen. It doesn't matter at the end of the day how much time someone may do for this. If it was a crime, it won't bring Nolan back. And that is the true tragedy. That's the true tragedy, I think, in all of these situations, because you can never bring that person back once they're gone.
Mhm. Earlier, you mentioned that you weren't sure if other Black kids were on that island, with them, and I'm leaning towards there wasn't, and the only reason why I say that is because they have brought out every Black teacher, coach, person that knew Nolan to speak, and say that they don't think this is a racial issue, and I feel like had there been other Black children there, they would have somehow tried to get them or their parents to speak as well because none of the white teachers have really I mean, I've seen, one or 2, but it's been mostly the Black coach, the Black teachers, the Black people that have known him, and so which lets me further know y'all know it's race. Because
Yeah.
anytime something like this happen, you push all the Black people you can in our faces. Here, go out there and convince them that what we're saying is right.
Yeah. Okay. So to recap, what we do know about this situation, because again, there's a lot we don't. It wasn't Hope Island. I was wrong. I misspoke. It's Horn Island, Horn, Horn Island. Okay, July 4th, America's birthday. The boat went to Horn Island. There were hundreds of young people on that island. Nolan arrives there with his friends. The last confirmed sighting was mid afternoon, although I did see that pool picture, which, I'm like, what time was that? It looked dark outside to me.
Mhm.
But, we know who was with him. He has photos of who he was with. We don't know exactly what their plan was and what they had confirmed that they were going to do versus what they actually did. Still don't know. But we do know that the boat left, that Nolan's phone stayed with that group that he came with, that his keys were with the group that he came with, and that the boat left without him. We know that that behavior of him leaving his keys or phone uncharacteristic for Nolan. They said he was very much on social media. And as most of us know, I mean, with our kids, if they get a hold of our phone, we might not get it back. So I have young ones, and if they get my phone, they gonna want to take it. So yeah, what would you do in this situation? What would any family do in a situation like this with the kinds of circumstances that we see in this case? I mean, how many white parents, Latino parents, Asian parents, if their child was the one that didn't come back with the group, would just be like, well, we just have to wait and see what the police say? How many would just take the word of whoever? Or would you be out there asking these same questions? I mean, I think that, you know, the questions are very reasonable. They're being framed as insane, which is crazy. But these are reasonable things to ask. Like none of this stuff adds up, and that is the problem. So, what would you do?
Are you asking me?
It's a hypothetical. I feel like I know what you would do, but if you want to say what you would do,
I
go
can't
for it.
say no legally just in case anything ever happened, because then our police will be on my trail because I'm going to jail too. But I would like to hear what all of you think you would do in the comments. So that I do want to know because I
Yeah, there was.
have seen so many different things. I've seen certain, people with the same mindset as you. Okay, I would be outraged. I would be looking. I would be searching, and then other people are honestly saying, "See, there's nothing to see here. They didn't do anything." The When the autopsy came back, there was a lot of people in the comments like, "See, we told you he drowned." Nobody said that. Like, no one said anything about that. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because I have a lot of questions around the search effort and what the Coast Guard's level of involvement was because I heard some things that sounded a little off about that. So who was involved in the search? How long it took them to start searching? Who discovered the body? How and where and when it was found? The initial official statements that came out, like all of those are questions, right?
Mhm.
But as with social media, there's always going to be a lot of rumor, a lot of conjecture around, events like this. And I think at the end of the day, the work has to be done, the science, the investigating has to be done to really uncover what happened. But I am happy that his parents retained legal counsel because the only way that they're going to get the answers that they need is if they have somebody actively searching for those and not actively trying to, get people to forget about it and say that there's nothing to see here. Again, I don't know what happened. It could have been an accident, but the reactions of the young boys and their parents are not consistent with that
Mhm.
as a story. And I think that is why so many people have questions.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, we're not here to judge. We're not passing judgment. We're going off of what we see and what the facts are.
Yeah. So a lot of times there is, confirmation bias, emotional reasoning, for on both sides of this situation. Because I think sometimes people have a vested interest in preserving, I guess, what aligning with people that they see themselves in. Right.
Mhm.
And so historically, a lot of Black people are going to be like, oh, this feels off. We're going to kind of align with that narrative that something feels off. And we're going to ride with that until we're told something different. And we have, non melanated people on the other side, especially that would identify with the boys. And they're like, no, 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 there's nothing. right? And because they part of it is because you want to believe there's nothing, right? And for us, part of it is we want to believe something did happen, right? And I
Mm.
think at the end of the day, the evidence needs to be the thing that speaks for this situation. There's obviously a lot of misinformation. I think there was somebody did like an AI thing of his mama saying some crazy stuff. And I did see that a few days ago. And then she had to come on socials and be like, that was not me. I did not make any say this is me and I'm having to do it now. But what you saw, that wasn't me. Somebody made it up. So there's a lot of misinformation as well. But what I would say is the truth never becomes stronger just because it's something that's repeated. The truth is stronger because it's supported by
Mhm.
actual evidence and facts. And I think that oftentimes people will, repeat something so many times that they want it to be true. I think Donald Trump is a very, very adept at repeating lies so many times that he himself believes it to be true and wants you to believe
Yes.
the thing. So just because we say something a lot doesn't make it true. What
Uh-huh.
makes it true is the evidence, the facts that support that thing. So I would
Got
just say
you.
that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely Donald Trump is an amazing example of that. He
Right.
been he say one more time they stole the election, baby. I'm scream. I
Yeah.
wish they steal you.
Yeah, but there is another part to all of this that we want to talk about as well. We want to get into, why this hit us so differently than anybody else. And a lot of times when we hear that the authorities are investigating something, there is an immediate side eye. There is immediate audible sigh that I think that we have as Black people, Black Americans, when they say let the police handle it, we're like, hmm. So
I think we literally say, "No, no, no, call Ben crime." I think as a collective black people, we say, "Call Ben,"
yeah. Well, before Ben, it was Johnny. Call Johnny Cochran.
or Ben, it was Johnny.
Somebody else. We
Uh-huh.
need somebody else that's going to get in here and wrestle and fight to get to the bottom of what really happened. And we're gonna talk about that next time. So stay tuned. We are gonna keep telling the truth, even if it is not popular. But we always want to be as honest and candid as possible with it and sticking to the facts, right, of the situation. But we are people. We do have emotions. We do have our own opinions on this situation and what's going on. But there is a lot of historical precedent and context. And next episode, we're really gonna dive into all of that on a very, very deep level. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any feedback for us, we would love to see that in the comments. We are going to have a live on Fridays. And those are our days where we're going to be going live. So we would love to interact with you guys and engage and have more of these kinds of conversations. If you found this helpful, definitely like, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things. And until next time, peace.
Yes.